I think what's very interesting is you're still saying, even in the age of AI and all of this technology disruption, we're still taking bets on people.
Yeah. A leader needs to be hungry and competitive to win in the marketplace. Ultimately, it all comes down to great people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I personally believe it's enabling, it'll make people more productive. All this hype, some of that is a little self-serving in the industry of some, large company that want to position themselves as more socially responsible.
What is your recommendation in terms of how product teams should steer away from these biases that could potentially shape customer experience?
If you would just train on that old data that has built-in discrimination built into it, then the AI will start to have a discriminatory type of an output. So one has to be aware of that. You have to be constantly looking at the data and see what's feeding this model. Rather than just trust a model, it's important to understand the data that is fed into the model, because it's garbage in, garbage out. If you have a poorly trained model, you're going to get poor outcome for what you need to get out of it, right?
The age of AI has shortened every product development lifecycle. Products launch faster, customers react sooner, and the distance between idea and impact has almost disappeared. In this world, product managers don't just build features. They interpret data, they sense behavior, and make calls that could reshape an entire business. I'm Namita Adavi, partner at Zinnov, and this is the latest episode of Zinnov's podcast. Joining me today is Ajay Singh, Chief Product Officer at Pure Storage. Ajay brings over 25 years of experience in software and services industry. He's held leadership roles at VMware, Hewlett Packard, founded Proactive Net, which was later acquired by BMC Software, and led Elastic Intelligence, which was then acquired by Intuit. He's seen technology revolutions up close and has led 3 teams through each of them. In this conversation, we talk about how AI is quietly rewriting the playbook on product management and customer experience, and why today the margin for getting it wrong is shorter and smaller than ever. Ajay, welcome to the episode. It's so great to have you here.
Thank you. Super glad to be here.
So Ajay, for our listeners today, could you give us a quick 30-second snapshot of what Pure Storage does?
Yeah, so Pure Storage is actually a leader in the storage and data management space. The big focus for us is what we call the enterprise data cloud, where essentially we can, rather than have individual silos of storage, we can have all our storage connected in a cloud of data. And that data, you can then build on that data for AI, cyber resilience, all these great set of use cases. That's what's unique about us and different. So that's what we do.
Okay, awesome. I wanted to hear about you, what your journey has been like. So if you could just quickly give us a brief overview of what your journey has been like as a leader, and we'll get into the rest of the
Yeah. So I've been lucky that, I got into Silicon Valley at the very early 80s at the ground floor when a lot of technology evolution was happening. So saw the whole PC, workstation, the open systems, now the cloud revolution, and now AI, right? So have been through all of these, been in big companies like Sun Microsystems, Booz Allen and Hamilton Consulting in technology, to all the way doing startups as founders, selling the startups, to now public companies, currently a chief product officer at Pure Storage.
Okay, awesome. Your experience has been extremely unique, and I think it gives you very unique perspective on how AI is fundamentally transforming a lot of product and technology companies, right? So we wanted to dig sort of a little bit deeper on that. It isn't just changing. I think, a lot of the talk around AI isn't just changing, product development, lifecycle, employee experiences. It's changing how customers react as well and respond to changes, right? What shifts have you seen in terms of expectations and trust, and how do you think product teams should adapt to keep up with it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, like most customers, are generally pretty swamped with data in their personal lives and work lives. So they're all very busy. And so the natural tendency is to just, if AI is saying this, then maybe it's probably okay, let's just go with it. And so we have to be very mindful as product people that, people are generally more trusting. And so it's incumbent upon us that the AI is not hallucinating. We know how accurate the response is. And then we've figured out guardrails and how to compensate for that and a mitigation strategy so that ultimately we care about the outcome, right? And this is just a method to get to the outcome. And we live and die by the outcome, and the outcome has to be 100% of accuracy. That can't be, based on, say, 96% accuracy. So one has to compensate.
Yeah, which is, I think the whole margin of error has not fundamentally shifted.
Has not fundamentally gone away yet. I mean, so it's improved a lot.
Sure.
But you can't completely just only rely on that.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring this point out, because I think the general sense is AI will, after all of the hype and all the dust has settled, like a couple of weeks ago, we were saying, yeah, AI will disrupt everything. And, so it's interesting that a leader like you is saying it's enabling. It may not, I think at the core of it, what we're doing is not changing.
Yeah, I mean, I personally believe it's enabling. It'll make people more productive. All this hype, some of that is a little self-serving in the industry of some, large companies that want to position themselves as more socially responsible, that kind of. And so if you can beat the drum on this potential social negatives and then position yourself as, you separate yourself from the competition. But it, fundamentally, I see it as an enabler than anything else.
Okay.
Yeah.
And not as disruptive, which is, I think, leads to my next question. There is still, I think, significant areas, basically from what I'm hearing you say, where human judgment and human-in-the-loop decisions will still lead, right? And pave the way in terms of driving better customer experience. In that context, what does good leadership look like, right? And what are some of the traits that you would definitely ask leaders who are listening in to double down on?
One way to think about that is, rather than just trust a model, it's important to understand the data that is fed into the model, because it's garbage in, garbage out. If you have a poorly trained model, you're going to get poor outcome for what you need to get out of it, right? Obviously, there's the large models, but then there's specialized models that you may be using, potentially doing your own training, on your particular industry. And so, again, it's incumbent upon the leadership to really understand the data sets and the quality of the data sets. And then what is the margin of error? And I'd be shocked if somebody says, oh, this is 100% accurate, right? I mean, I'm hard-pressed to believe that. And so what are you doing to then mitigate that? So there's work at the bottom, if you may. And then there's, from a leadership standpoint, it's that, okay, asking the hard question to say, okay, so where are the errors and what are you doing to mitigate that so that we can have a trustworthy outcome on customers who are not trusting us on this?
Yeah, absolutely. And so the role of the leader increases at the top of the funnel and at the bottom of the funnel, right? So it's like you have to bring in systems thinking to be able to address that need for better products. Okay, that's great. Of course, I think to your point about leaders who are pitching the idea that it's 100%, effective, we don't need human programmers in the loop. AI products, so to speak, are everywhere, right? And I think what we've also started to see is there's a lot of biases that are also coming into these products, right? When we were talking before this, you called out a very interesting example as well. What is your recommendation in terms of how product teams should steer away from these biases that could potentially shape customer experience?
Again, it comes down to the quality of the data, right? And so one has to be aware, there are examples on, for example, in the housing market, early on, there was some discrimination before the equal opportunity, some of the laws were enacted. And so if you would just train on that old data that has built-in discrimination built into it, then the AI will start to have a discriminatory type of an output. So one has to be aware of that. You have to be constantly looking at the data and see what's feeding this model, right? To be aware of any biases, that may or may not be. For example, all products, and we, do co-pilots as a case and example, where we train for our company. We have a product called Pure One that collects data on all our customers and how they're using the storage and all of that. And we are very careful that we curate the data really well before we feed it into our co-pilot, right? So that we can deliver to customers. The outcome we want to deliver to them is the benefit of the learning of our 12,000 customers and what they're doing, and be able to offer that up to one unique customer in their situation. So that curating that data and looking at it and making sure it's good is a super important part of it.
Yeah, so that's a very interesting example. If I could just double click a little bit. So it again ties back to how you think it's been enabling product teams, right? So it's Have you seen impact in terms of making the teams faster, more effective, a quicker time to market? Where have you seen like a lot of the impact? And
No,
could this be
absolutely.
foundational?
I think the speed of innovation, definitely has gone up tremendously. Both certainly in product management in a big way, because you can now, instead of doing feature by feature work, you kind of more frame up a bunch of outcomes you want, get, the AI to help you with kind of draft the PRDs and the design specs, and then also iterate on UI. These days, UI is becoming, less important because it's kind of more conversational and human interaction UI. So then the question is more on behavior patterns, right? You're looking at saying, okay, I've got this conversational UI through copilots or, MCP model control protocols, all of that. And so then how are the actually customers using it? What patterns do they have? Even in traditional UI, you tend to do that, but it usually falls off by the side because you're so busy just trying to get the workflows done. Here, it's conversational. So everybody has a unique pattern, but then to figure out what the pattern is, what this cluster of the patterns are, and then do some more hyper-personalization around that. That's where it's kind of headed. So there's a lot of changes in product management.
Yeah. I'm not envious of product managers right now, but that's great, right?
I think it's exciting.
It's
change is always good.
Absolutely.
They're getting help. They can be more impactful.
Yeah, absolutely. I think even also the tolerance of the timelines are like so fast, sort of collapsing onto each other that it's going to be interesting, obviously. But you're right. I think a lot of the more tactical aspects of like drafting the PRDs, etc., is completely being taken care of AI. Which means product managers are now having to elevate their contribution.
I'll give you an example. Our Copilot, from the time it was in a glimmer in somebody's eye to the time we actually got out of the door, was literally in months.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Looking at the data, the training and all of that, and we got out of the door.
Yeah, we should discuss how you managed to do that, because we're still sort of in the exploratory stages, but we'll come to that later. One of the interesting things that I was, as I was reading up about the profile and your experience, you have worked across startups and you've worked across large global enterprises, right? So it's enviable in terms of having experiences on both sides of the fence. Do you think that there are lessons on agility, on decision-making that you think, a lot of these larger organizations could learn from startups, especially in the construct of AI and customer experience?
Yeah. So look, I'm a fairly passionate believer, kind of having done multiple startups, worked at companies like Sun Microsystems and HP and BMC and VMware and Proact, and now Pure Storage. Firm believer that the winning model for driving innovation is the venture-driven startup model that takes companies and innovations to an IPO finally, right? In some sense, that's a mark of, hey, it's, you graduated with a master's degree. You're obviously going to continue to your PhD and postdoc and all that after that. And so that's, given that's a winning model, there's no reason why that same model can't be used in bigger companies. Now, not all big companies do that, but everywhere I tend to go, and I know at Pure, we are very fortunate. We still have a founder who's an amazingly passionate guy, super bright, very engaged, that we actually follow a very similar model. So we might have, 10 irons in the fire. And for example, our FlashArray product, which is our block storage product, is what the company went IPO on. That's a post-IPO type product, now well solidly mature. We're still innovating there, but it's that category of product. But in the meantime, we also have products that are a glimmer in somebody's eye, and then how do you fund that? And if you think about how VCs fund something, the first thing they bet is on the people, the founders. Do they have that passion in their eyes, that gleam that they want to conquer a hill, and they understand that hill really well, and they're deeply technical in that area. Plus, they have a vision, and you say, okay, I'm going to put some money behind them, give them a seed round, right? And then you say, okay, hey, now have they infected a few customers with that passion, and are they willing to say, if you build that, they get some design partners, and then you give them some more money and say, okay, try and get them to be paying customers. And once they do that, then, hey, can we figure out a go-to-market model? So the same discipline.
Yeah.
And that's how we manage innovation at Pure Storage, for example. And VMware, we did the same thing that way.
Yeah, because I think what's very interesting is you're still saying, even in the age of AI and all of this technology disruption, we're still taking bets on people. at the end of it, right? Which is a great lesson, I think, to sort of take away from this, right? I think one aspect of it, and it could be also on the leaders you are bringing on board or mentoring, but what's one sort of principle that you believe is a non-negotiable and has stood the test of time, like a leadership principle that you operate on and you wish our listeners could potentially
I think, look, a leader needs to be hungry and competitive to win in the marketplace. Ultimately, it's all about, obviously you're winning in serving a customer need. So it's in the context of the customer and serving the customer. But, you want to serve them better than anybody else and beat the competition in the process. So a leader that has a strategic mindset, understands who's the customer, why do they buy, what's their pain points, how is it segmented, who's the competition, what are their strengths and weaknesses, very sensitive to what are our strengths and weaknesses, and then how do you play this game of chess on the chessboard to win at the other end, because they have their, strengths and weaknesses, and, we have ours, and how do you flank them, and how do you neutralize their strengths and get a, winning play there.
Yeah. And be like a kingmaker, but
ultimately
sort of
you
build
want
a team that'll back you
up.
Basically. Okay.
Of course, people it's ultimately it all comes down to great people.
Yeah, just building on that example in chess, particularly, it's people in the right roles also.
Yeah,
playing the right roles with a certain set of moves. So so that's a good takeaway. I think the other thing is, how do you sort of personally stay curious? The waves of transformation are just coming even before we can catch up to them. But what are your mantra on staying curious, continually learning as an internal innate ability?
Yeah, so look, I'm very fortunate that I'm surrounded by some amazing, really great people who are really specialists in the areas. While I do certainly, read on the outside, there's a lot of great, YouTube videos on new subjects that, dumb it down, simplify it for you and all of that. But then I also get the opportunity to sit down with some amazing specialists. And for example, we've got a security guru in our company who's done multiple startups. And I've learned a lot about security just having one-on-ones with him. In addition to, he'd recommend, hey, look at this YouTube video, look at that. So yes, that's what's beautiful about the Valley is there's so much happening and so much has happened, and very fortunate to be in this time and place in the planets. Right
no,
now.
Absolutely, and I think we feel the same way about Bangalore also, with the number of logos and just Outer Ring Road and the innovation that's happening on that one particular stretch.
Yeah, by the way, we've got an amazing Bangalore team, run by a great leader here, and some great innovations coming out of this team. A lot of passion in that team. So we're very proud of that. Yeah.
No, awesome. That's great to hear. Unfortunately, this is an occupational hazard, but I do have to do a rapid fire with you. So we'll get right into it. What's a product that you didn't build, but you wish you had?
Yes. So I was the founder of Juniper, is a good personal friend. We went to Carnegie Mellon together, worked on the same project. And when he was founding the company, he approached me to be his co-founder.
Oh, wow.
And I was just starting another company already. I'd committed to another friend, and so I wish I'd built that product.
Okay, got it. What's one mistake early in your career that you think has shaped how you build today?
Yeah, so I think after I did my master's in computer engineering, then I went to business school, and then after business school I was at Booz Allen in Hamilton, and you don't realize how spoiled you get at a place like Booz, because everybody's from either Stanford or Harvard or MIT
or Carnegie Mellon, right?
Yeah, or super bright folks, and so you're working with this talented pool, and it's a up or out type of model. So you're giving harsh feedback to really bright people because the stakes are really high with big customers. And then when you, as the manager there and all that, when you finally work at a regular company, I went to Sun Microsystems. You kind of keep your bar really high, and where it's good to keep your bar really high, it's also important to understand, how you, manage your team, a large team with a diverse skill set, and how do you get the most out of them, as opposed to just keep a unilateral high bar. Because soon I started to notice as a young leader that they started to have a lot of churn in my org, because they were feeling like, we're never going to hit this bar. So why are we wasting time? We're going to move on. As opposed to you kind of figure out what they're good at and then you customize and figure out how to, if they're on a scale of 1 to 10 a 7, how do you get them to 8 or a 9? As opposed to say you have to be a 10. That's maybe not attainable for them, right? And so that was a big learning on how do you be what I call a coach, and how do you make everybody become a star, right? And be squarely in the camp, and they feel like you're rooting for them and rooting for them to succeed.
So I'm drawing a lot of parallels from this, but that's great. If your team, if you think your team could inherit one quality from you, what would you want it to be?
It's all about people, hiring great people. And then being, if somebody didn't turn out, it's okay. You're doing them a favor. It's a good outcome that they can then go to a place where they can thrive. Because the principle is that if you have the right people in the right roles, which they're good at, they're having fun, they're all thriving. So most of the time you're just mostly cheering the team along. If you're not cheering them along, then you've got some wrong people in the mix here. And maybe they're not having a good time either. If they can go in a role that they feel they'll thrive in, that'd be good for everybody.
What's one simple question you always ask before you greenlight a product idea?
Yeah, so for me, obviously there's a standard set of questions, that around, market and all of that. But for me, the most important question is the people, right? Who are the people? And, so I really want to get to know them, that we are putting the bet on. Because ultimately you're betting on people. And if it's the right team, that's the one you want to greenlight. Because, environments change. This is a team that has the ability to pivot and change. And, most startups, the original idea is not what they finally, IPO on. It's the team that figures it out and generally in a direction where there's an opportunity. So that's the people it comes down to it.
Okay, awesome. And final one, what's one lesson you wish someone had told you when you were starting out in tech?
Yeah, I think there's probably a common theme here, did all this engineering work and all the math equations and all of that. But, wish we had more classes in psychology and people management and how do you kind of lead teams. Of course, you discover that, over the course of your career, but I think some earlier education or some work on how do you manage and motivate large teams so that they're operating like an Olympic rowing team and not doing Brownian motion, making progress. So that's the important.
Like a toolkit would have been great. Like early on, right?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. This has been an extremely insightful conversation. I think what's been interesting and we seem to be converging on is that people will still be at the core of even technology strategy. And I think one of your biggest learnings has been to take bets there rather than, short-term sort of idea products, which will anyway keep evolving, right? Ajay, thank you so much. It's been such an insightful conversation today. Thank you for joining us. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. Stay tuned as we bring you more conversations with industry stalwarts on shaping the future of technology, leadership, and innovation. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Zinnov Podcast. Stay tuned for more such interesting episodes. You can listen to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, or any of your favorite streaming platforms.